What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/StoriesAboutKevin. Alright, this story's called Dr. Kevin, the dyspraxic, blood-phobic surgeon. I once shared a house with Dr. Kevin, who is an eye surgeon. Most noticeably, he was clumsy. He had no problem holding something in his hands if he was standing still. I am going to be absolutely honest throughout, and I am not going to insult you or him by making the outlandish claim that he couldn't hold something whilst standing still. I'd even say he was good at it. But he couldn't coordinate his hands and feet at the same time. If he had to walk across the room carrying something, there was a good chance he would drop it. To be fair to him, about a 40% chance. And every time he dropped something, he would do one of two things. He would usually trip over it, but on a good day, he would kick it really hard into the corner of the room. He fell down the stairs once a week. We'd hear a series of thumps and see him sitting at the bottom of the stairs with the same bewildered face every single time. I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose dyspraxia, but it did seem like it. And I'm not mocking dyspraxia. It's the combining it with eye surgery that sits uneasily with me. In the house, we would ask each other, do they not test if a surgeon can carry things and walk downstairs? We decided he must be just very good at small movements with his fingertips, but not at large ones with his hands. But then every day when he shaved, he cut himself badly. I can only imagine he held the razor still and rubbed his face on it like a cat. He didn't like to use his own towels to mop up blood, so my girlfriend's towels ended up looking like Cruella de Vil's coat. Which brings us on to the next item. He was squeamish at the sight of blood. We used to watch a lot of medical dramas, and he'd have to leave the room if there was visible blood. We'd ask each other, do they not test if a surgeon can handle the concept of people bleeding? So we decided there can't be much blood involved in eye surgery. But he also had a very interesting quirk, which was that if there was any binary operation, he would get it the wrong way around. If he used anything electrical, he would start by turning it off and then ask why it wasn't moving. If his pan was boiling over, he would turn the heat up. After seeing me many times going up and down the ladder to my loft, the one time he came up to look at something, he went down the near vertical ladder with his back to it, his face starting off smug as if he thought he was showing me a better way of doing something, but turning to terror halfway down as he realized he was going too fast but had nothing to hold on to, and just jumped the last few rungs. He melted our steamer 3 times by using it without water, and even though we explained how important water was to the function of a steamer, then because he picked up on my annoyance after I had run downstairs for the 3rd time to turn off a melting steamer, he decided to take the batteries out of a smoke alarm so that I wouldn't have to worry about it again. Maybe it's just me, but I didn't see that as the best solution. Let's just stop there a second. Next time you're bored, or if you're bored now, then as an exercise, I want you to fully explain his smoke alarm battery decision as if you yourself were Dr. Kevin, and see if you can make it sound rational. Also, the sentence has to end with officer. Alright guys, I'm gonna take a crack at it.
Well, I was just, like, you were getting annoyed about the smoke alarm, and I didn't want you to get annoyed about it anymore, so I took out the battery so you wouldn't have to worry about it. Also, I'm supposed to end the sentence with officer.
Because Kevin would be the type of person to get the issue wrong. Instead of, thinking OP's getting upset about his steamer melting, he thinks he's upset about the smoke alarm because every time he comes downstairs, it's because of the smoke alarm. Boom. Best of all was when he sent a parcel to the British Medical Association and it was returned to him unopened. He was angrily waving it at me, demanding to know why they had done such a thing. I had to look at it and had to tell him, I see what's happened, mate. You put your own name and address on the back. He insisted that this was the standard procedure for official documents. I added, yes, but that's the side you also put the stamp on. You just posted it to yourself. Now, if I was making this story hurry up, I would claim that he paid extra for recorded delivery and had to sign up for it at the door to prove he had received it from himself. I cannot be sure he did that though, and I am just sticking to the truth here because I like to be honest, and I feel Dr. Kevin would be insulted by any embellishment. He needs none. We'd ask each other in the house. Surely they test if a surgeon, in every circumstances, does exactly the opposite to what he should do. I mentioned cooking issues. Because he came from a strict patriarchal country, the kitchen had a steep learning curve for him, but he was up for it. Once he came into the kitchen, where I was talking with my friend, proudly said,
"I even do my own shopping,"
and took my friend's tea mug out of his hand, rinsed it out, and made himself a cup of tea whilst we watched, as if he was just showing us he could. When he left the kitchen, I turned to my friend and asked, "Had you finished that tea?" And I'll always remember the wistful, baffled look on his face as he quietly answered, "No." If you're a British person, I am deeply sorry for the abject pathos you must have felt reading this distressing anecdote. Like many vegetarians, I like to tell everyone that I'm a vegetarian, although Dr. Kevin did try to convince me not to be with his argument.
Rabbits are meant to be eaten.
As a vegetarian, I don't get food poisoning, except on this one occasion just after Dr. Kevin moved in. I knew that my girlfriend, now wife, was a keeper because she was so understanding when I unglamorously pooed the bed in the middle of the night. I had food poisoning so bad that I had to stand in the cellar like Doctor Who regenerating, with vomit and diarrhea shooting out of me in all directions. Yo, that was me in Pakistan, no joke. I went to the cellar out of embarrassment because it was so noisy. I held bin bags simultaneously at both ends to catch it. That's about how it is. It's not a memory I have nostalgia for. I didn't understand what caused it until I saw Dr. Kevin washing up after eating his signature dish of burnt yet undercooked chicken. He only rinsed his plate with cold water and no washing up liquid, rubbing it with just his fingertips and put it straight in the cupboard without drying. We asked ourselves, surgeons, hygiene, contamination, do they not? I mentioned patriarchy. One of the women in the house told him it's spring forward, fall back, so he'd know which way to change his clocks. But I facetiously exclaimed that was no good as a memory aid because you can just easily spring back or fall forward. And because I had said that with a man's authority, he set his clock wrong and then blamed me for it when he missed an appointment. To be fair, I do always get confused by that myself. Why would you plant that in his mind? Oh no. He once came into the living room and sat down on the TV remote, changing the channel from the show my girlfriend and our other housemate were watching, and refused to turn it back because as females, they didn't outrank his male arse. No, of course he didn't really say that. It's just my uncharitable interpretation of his actions. What he actually said was that the nature show he'd put on was better for them to watch than the celebrity show they'd had on. Is that better or worse than my male arse-based justification? I do not ever have to ask myself which personality trait is strongest, the famed British politeness or feminist murderous rage. I have seen the answer to that question. After seeing my girlfriend leave the house for work every morning, but never asking what she did for a living, he saw a letter for her addressed to Dr. OP's girlfriend and was suddenly interested, until she said that her PhD was in 18th century history, and he never spoke to her again. That's so sick though. Just as an aside, he made us call him Dr. Kevin at all times, which was very Mike Myers.
I didn't spend 6 years in evil medical school to be called Mister. Thank you very much.
He was furious to find out surgeons in Britain are called Mr. for historical reasons. If you were familiar with my own history, you'd remember that amongst my faults is a slight sensitivity to noise at night. Dr. Kevin was a problem in this regard with doors. As a student of Kevinology, you've already assumed he slammed them loud. I'll give you 1 point because he did slam them as loud as he could. Like any master of craft, he had a thorough grasp of the basics, but that wasn't the issue. He used to open doors loudly. Open them! I've seen him do it in the daytime too. After a short run up, he would throw his whole weight at the door, but not turn the handle until right after he hit it. Don't try to test this, as it is a horrible noise and you might break your door. It's a metal grinding sound as loud as a popping balloon. I would often wake wake up sitting upright. Being woken in fear in the night is not something I would wish on anyone. If anything, the following slamming of the door came as a relief, revealing that the original noise was just Dr. Kevin with physical objects again, and not the last Trump summoning me to Jesus' side for an awkward conversation about agnosticism. Speaking of awkward conversations, you know if you're having a difficult one, say with your boss or someone who makes you nervous, there's a technique where you imagine the other person is sitting on the toilet. Dr. Kevin must have heard this, but misunderstood. Because if there was any issue he wanted to raise with me, he would wait and then shout it through the bathroom door at me whilst I was having a well-deserved poo. I'm sorry to mention me pooing again. It's not something I normally like to discuss. Annoyed, I wouldn't want to talk to him, and I'd have to explain that I was pooing, and that, as you'll know if you've been reading this carefully, it's not something I normally like to discuss, especially during. Quite ruins it for me. And that's why I decided to become an eye surgeon, because the bar they set is obviously so low that any idiot can stumble over it whilst dropping things. Not really though. I wouldn't be up to it academically. My spelling is awful. I had to look up diarrhea. Damn man, I'm not kink shaming you, but I don't know why you'd want to look that up. I'd be killing people left and right, confusing hyperglycemia with hypoglycemia, as well as freaking out because you have to cut people's eyes. How can you even get past just thinking, I'm cutting an eye! I'm cutting an eye! I've soundly mocked Dr. Kevin, but he was in a job needing great skill and composure while speaking in a second language, so he must have been very bright in ways that I couldn't see. I wish him well in his medical career and future malpractice lawsuits. OP, you're a freaking champ. This was a really nice story, and you're super nice to Kevin, because a lot of these stories are mean-spirited, or they're just making fun of people that might actually have some, I don't know, disabilities or something, you know, medically, cognitively wrong with them. I don't know the right words, but this was funny. He gave credit where credit was due, and the writing was so nice. Frickin' OP, you're great. Jonesaroo, I wanna read more by you. This story's called Kevin Discovers Google Images. At my previous job working outdoors, the head of our safety department was a Kevin. My workplace had a bit of a reputation for having somewhat of a good old boys mentality, where older men were elevated to higher positions without offering others an opportunity to interview for the open position with the reasoning, they've been here for years and we feel they'd be a good fit for this role. This particular Kevin could often be found sleeping in his office, especially on days when everyone else worked together to shovel snow, which is a safety hazard and something the head of safety should be addressing, but I'm getting off track. He lacked very basic tech skills, but would always harp on about how a lot of young people these days just aren't quite as sharp as us older folk. Yes, that was an actual quote during a company-wide training about how to manage stress. As the safety representative of my own department, I would frequently have to try to communicate with Kevin on safety-related issues. Unfortunately, his voicemail box was always full because he didn't know how to check them, and any attempt to send him an email would be met with, I never got that, because he didn't know how to check that either. This caused me to constantly have to physically print out documents, drive all the way to the other side of the property, and hand deliver them straight into his mailbox. So his lack of basic knowledge about technology was well known to me at that point, but I did not think it was this bad. One day, about a year ago, he left a very long voicemail for my department about this incredible feature he found on the internet. If you go to the Google login page, you'll see a little button that says Images. If you click on that and type Our Workplace into the box, all kinds of pictures pop up of my department section. I mean, there's pictures of everything here. If you scroll down the list, you can even see a picture of what Workplace was like years ago. I really think this could be a great resource if you all are looking for pictures of my department. There's some really great ones here, so I figured I'd let you know about it. My coworkers and I just stared at each other, speechless, until one of them said, Did Kevin just discover Google Images? I have no words, man. Like, I cannot even Google imagine not knowing about Google Images. That was bad. This story is called Kevina, Who Can't or Won't Comprehend the Concept of Subtraction. I'm a grocery cashier in a big box store. Drama all day, every day. For the record, I observed this particular Kevina customer speaking English to a reasonable degree, so it wasn't simply a matter of language barrier. In any event, simple arithmetic is the same all over the world. No one has to be fluent in any particular language to be able to add and subtract or to know what addition and subtraction are. Actually, that's debatable because there's this one I think it's a tribe. They have no concept of time because their language didn't their language doesn't, use time as a concept. And so there's this whole thing where, like, depending on your language, there's potentially like other like mediums of perception that would be, I don't know, unlocked or freaking learned through language. And there's this science fiction story of this woman who learns this alien language that allows her to, I don't know, I think it was like read minds or something. I don't know, but cool concept. Anyway, back to the story. Kevin had an order that included some groceries along with 2 shirts. Both shirts had the same price and product description, but shirt A had a different UPC number from shirt B because the patterns were different. I scanned the shirt A correctly, but I accidentally scanned shirt B twice. I immediately voided out the second scan of shirt B. Stuff happens. As most retail customers understand, voiding a bad scan doesn't make the bad scan disappear from the receipt. Instead, the void counterbalances the bad scan with a negative entry, so that the void prints on the receipt with a minus sign. Long story short, every action is logged as an audit trail, and the total reflects the current amount due. Kevina paid for her stuff, but then she came back and insisted that I had rung up her shirts 3 times, besides the fact that she confused shirt A with shirt B, despite their having different UPCs. She also insisted that I had rung up shirt B 3 times. Nothing that I could say to her would void the transaction. Having a minus sign meant anything to her. Eventually, a manager came over to see what was wrong. She had to return everything and ring up the entire order to reassure the customer that the total was correct. Oh my god, is that actually what retail is like? And then Q45 comments, yes, Zach, no exaggerations. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. You guys are champions, and you're treated like doormats. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.